webinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So before we start, everyone, let's have a very quick visualization to start off with, so that we can be in the right state of consciousness, so that we can really understand DK's teachings here. So first of all, let's link up as a group. So there's about 22 of us. So visualize all of us standing at the edge of this golden path. And raise your consciousness as high as you possibly can. Endeavor then to hold steady, holding the mind in the light. Then realize too that on DK's side, he also stands steady, pouring out upon us his love and strength, and endeavoring to lift us up into a much higher state of consciousness. Then visualize ahead of us a disc of indigo blue, a deep electric blue. And imagine DK standing in the center of that disc, waiting. Then see a band of golden light between us and the disc, gradually shortening, thus bringing DK and us closer together, slowly and steadily, until we enter into the heart of the blue disc. And visualize all of us now, right in the middle of that blue disc, and let us sound a blue Om. As we link up with one another and linking up with DK. So in our first webinar, I will be raising very basic questions. Is he really coming? And if he is, why is the Christ coming? What prompted his decision? When was that decision made? Did he make it on his own? And if he is coming, when is he returning? How will he be returning? And where will he be coming from? And if he is he coming alone? So let's see if we can have an answer to all these very basic questions. In the Bhagavad Gita, as you know, the sacred book of the Hindus, it is said that whenever there is a withering of the law, an uprising of lawlessness on all sides, then I manifest myself. For the salvation of the righteous and the destruction of such as do evil, for the firm establishment of the law, I come to birth, age after age. And I think you would agree with me that there is a withering of the law and an uprising of lawlessness on all sides. NDK emphatically tells us that yes, the Christ is coming. The call for the preparation for his reappearance has gone out. And the demand from the earth is such that it's mounting every day. And in such an hour, as we don't think, he will come. Now, in the West, there is a doctrine of the coming one, but in the East, there is also another doctrine called the doctrine of the avatars. And that doctrine states that at every great human crisis, always, when humanity needs it most, and at the founding of a new race, the heart of God, impelled by the law of compassion, sends forth a teacher, a world savior, an illuminator, an avatar, a transmitting intermediary, or a Christ. And today this is no exception to this ancient rule. So then the next question that may come up in our minds is, well, why does he send somebody? Why doesn't he come himself? Well, actually, the planetary logos on our Earth scheme actually came. Excuse me. He actually took physical incarnation, and in the form of Sanat Kumara, the Ancient of Days, the initiator, the eternal youth, the Lord of the world, he came down to this physical planet, and he has remained with us ever since. But owing to the purity of his nature and incapable of responding to nothing else, to nothing in this dense physical plane, he was unable to take a dense physical body like ours. So therefore he has to content himself to function in his etheric body. So the next question is, where in his etheric body? As you know, the first four higher ethers are his etheric body. So he exists, or rather his home, Shambhala, is on the monadic plane, in the matter of the second ether, and no lower. So what does the word avatar mean then? It comes from a Sanskrit word, av, meaning coming down from far away. So this root word av denotes that protection from above. So when it's used in the context of the gods, it means coming down with the approval of the higher source from which it came, and for the benefit of the place at which it arrives. So then why does an avatar come? Two reasons. One, an unknown cause prompts him to do so. And secondly, from below, it's the demand or the invocation of humanity itself. So therefore, two reasons, one from above and one from below. Avatars usually come in times of crisis. They frequently, we are told, they frequently create crisis in order to bring to an end the old, the crystallized, the undesirable, to make way for the new, more suitable forms for the evolving life of that life within. So they come when evil is rampant. So therefore an avatar is a spiritual planetary event. And he comes to bring great changes or major restorations, to inaugurate a new civilization, that is a new way of, a new perspective on life, That's what he means by a new civilization. Or to restore ancient landmarks. And more to the point, to lead men closer to the divine. So, simply put, it's to establish a nucleus of persistent, spiritually positive energy on Earth. So an avatar is a planetary spiritual event. And an avatar is one who has a peculiar capacity to transmit energy or divine power, obviously of a very high degree. But avatars can be of all degrees, and they embody usually great truths. But some are custodians of some divine principle or some divine quality, so that they can act as a channel for the transmission from Shambhala. And such one is the Christ. Christ embodies in himself the divine principle of love. And he has, for the very first time in planetary history, transmitted this divine principle of love directly on our planet, and to a most definite sense to humanity. So the ray of an avatar is usually a representative of the second aspect, that of love, the love of God, because Shambhala is mainly love, will to good. So he will, or this avatar, will manifest as the savior, the builder, the preserver. So when did he decide to come again? So this point of decision was reached during the period of the full moon of June 1936 and the full moon of June 94. And that's when he decided, or rather he made his announcement that he was going to reappear, or to return to visible presence on Earth as soon as possible, and considerably earlier than had been planned. So who backs the Christ in this momentous decision? First, the Buddha. The Buddha himself stands behind the Christ, his brother, in humble recognition of this divine task, which he is on the verge of embarking on. And because of that spiritual accomplishment, hierarchy too backs him up. And Shambhala. Everybody, or all those great spiritual beings who live in Shambhala, also are mobilized and organized to assist Christ in his reappearance. And finally, the Father himself, the Lord of the world, Sanat Kumara, who, on his throne at Shambhala in the Gobi Desert, presides over the Lodge of Masters, because hierarchy is his ashram, and holds in his hands the reins of government of all three departments, the first ashram of the Manu, the second ashram of the Christ, and the third ashram of the Mahachohan. These three departments, he is the one who decides who settles, Who shall fill the vacant posts? Who will move on? He's really holding the reins of the government of the world in his hands. He also chooses to watch over not only our evolution, meaning the evolution of humanity, but also of the evolution of the Devas. So 4 times a year he meets in conference with all the Chohans and the masters and authorize what needs to be done to further the ends of evolution. So as you can see, we are in good hands, in spite of what we see out there in the outer world. So we are told that at the June full moon of 1945, Christ announced his decision as final, that he is going to reappear. But this decision drew forth the permission from Sanat Kumara himself and the right to use certain words of power or stanzas of direction, as it's called. And the right to use these is never lightly accorded, DK tells us. He was given permission or the right to use a certain invocation never granted before, and one which has been only used and permitted to be used only by the most exalted spiritual beings. Now, I won't go through the great invocation here because it has been discussed fully in a series of webinars, of about 4 webinars, which is on the Makara website. So you can go to the Makara and download it if you so wish. So in June 1945, at the time of this full moon, a very significant day for the Christ, he consciously took over his responsibilities as teacher and leader during the Aquarian solar cycle. He's the first of the great world teachers to cover 2 zodiacal cycles, the Piscean, when he came 2,000 years ago, and now the Aquarian. So did Christ make this decision alone? As we saw, no. He decided it in consultation with Sanat Kumara, as Sanat Kumara is the custodian of the will of the solar logos. So here we see that the solar logos is involved as well. He also made it with the cooperation of the masters and the senior associates in hierarchy, because their participation and help was absolutely imperative. However, this decision, though, was his and his alone to make, because it marked not only a point of crisis in his experience, but a point of climax in his expression of divinity. And we will see this a little bit further later. So then when is he coming? Well, the exact date of his coming is only known by his senior workers. The Chohans obviously know. But we have been given a hint that it's after the externalization of the ashrams and after they've managed to organize themselves here, down here on earth. Because Christ faces a major test, preparatory to a great initiation. And when he has passed his test and fulfilled his task, then he'll pass on to much more exalted position in Shambhala, or to some distant place of service where the most exalted can follow him. Somewhere in the solar system, he will be fulfilling another mission. But before this happens, he must enter the public arena again and play his part in world affairs and prove the scope of his mission. Now, we were told that DK embodied the principle of love, but he also embodied the principle of light, because he blended these two, the second and the first aspect of divinity. Now, it's the will aspect that he's preparing for. He's preparing to embody the third, or the first aspect, or the third point of that triangle, will. So then, if he is going to embody the will of the Logos, let's spend a few minutes thinking about, well, what is the nature of that will? Of course, we won't be able to cover, because it is, well, first of all, we won't fully understand, because this is quite inscrutable, and it's only until we've reached fifth initiation or over that we will have a full understanding of the nature of the will of the Logos. But we can make a beginning with some aspect. So we are told that the basic sacrifice that the planetary Logos made is when he decided to incarnate onto the earth, and he actually created this earth strictly for redemptive purposes. Because Sanat Kumara is the greatest avatar of all. He is the prototype of old world saviors. He came to save the prisoners of the planet, us included. In other words, all the souls within this planet. And DK tells us, if only we could see this great redemptive experiment which is going on this little planet, and that we are unique from this perspective. I'll just digress for a minute. Let's have a look at what does the word redemption really means. The origin of that word is from the Latin redemptio, meaning buying back, releasing. From red, meaning back, or re, meaning back, and emere, Latin emere, meaning to buy or to procure. So what's being released here? It's the prisoners of the planet. That he's gaining back, he's buying back the freedom of the soul and taking it away, releasing it from the grip of matter. Because the soul of the Logos is enmeshed in the matter of this solar system, his body, the earth as well. So he's buying back our freedom. And under this law of sacrifice, Sanat Kumara must turn his back upon the central spiritual sun, and with the light of his countenance irradiate the path of the prisoners of the planet, very much like a lighthouse standing implacable, immovable, and lighting up the way for all these boats along their way and to go on to their destination safely. And he sentenced himself to stay as long as it is necessary, acting as the sun and light of the planet until the day of Pralaya, until it's necessary, until the last weary pilgrim has found his way home. And only thus can the light of the first aspect of the Solar Logos, the central spiritual sun, can begin to penetrate the dark places of the earth. So he came to redeem, to salvage, to purify the matter of the solar system, so that the substance of the next solar system will be that of a much higher order, as he will be blending the third and the second aspect, blending it in such a way that then it is a much better vehicle for the Solar Logos to express himself in his next incarnation, the next solar system. So this is quite a purpose, isn't it? So therefore, if Sanat Kumara is the avatar, the solar, the savior himself is the prototype, then Joe, what's happening?
I'm going to check and see.
Sorry, folks. Let's see if we can go on. Yes. So if Sanat Kumara is the savior, so therefore Christ will be aligned with this will of being a savior himself. And so we are told that Christ, the leader of hierarchy, is the leader of a hierarchy of redeemers, skilled in the science of redemption. So therefore Christ is the world healer and the world savior. And the goal for humanity is for us to also be saviors, redeemers. We, the fourth, the highest kingdom on this earth, we are meant to be transmitters of pure spiritual energy, which will vivify the lower kingdoms. So we are then the saviors of the lower kingdom. And DK tells us that when every human being who reaches the goal of light and wisdom automatically has a field of influence which extends both up and down, and which reaches both inwards into the source of light and outward into the fields of darkness that is in matter. And when he has thus attained, he will become a conscious center of life, giving force and will be without effort. Now, how amazing is that? We will become a conscious center of life, giving force and life and consciousness. And we will be doing so without effort. We will stimulate and energize and vivify to fresh efforts all lives that we contact. Be our fellow aspirants or an animal or a flower. We will be transmitters of light in the darkness, in matter. So this is quite a job that we have ahead of us. So now let's get back to the reappearance of the Christ. Now that we know what the purpose of the Logos is, therefore what the purpose of Christ is, and what our purpose is as well. So what were the factors that prompted Christ's decision? Well, there were quite a few things that were very clear in his mind. He knew that the work that he initiated 2,000 years ago must be completed. He must inaugurate the new world religion, the new way of approaching the divine. Because obviously the previous world religions have not worked, or they have failed in their purpose. And the needs of an invocative and a demanding humanity for more light, for peace, cannot be ignored. And the events that are symptomatic of the time of the end may not be delayed. In other words, there's lawlessness all around us. So it was time, or it is time. But Christ, being dual, being both divine and human, he had to balance on one side, his divine side, where he was responding to the will of Sanat Kumara, and on the other hand, his human side, responsive to the invocation of men, calling out for an end to all this lawlessness and for us to live in peace with one another. So between these two, he had to make the right adjustment and bring about right timing. And this, DK tells us, it wasn't an easy decision for him to make. And the bringing out of the good, out of this evil, is not going to be an easy task. So during the 9 years prior to 1945, he saw very clearly what he had to do. He had to reappear. He had to materialize the kingdom of souls on earth. And as we know, humanity is approaching its first initiation. What that really means is that the heart center of humanity is going to be awakened, touched, and the soul, the kingdom of soul, therefore, will be established on earth. So he has to reinstitute the mysteries of initiation so that they can form the basis of a new world religion. And as you know, initiation is a word that means an expansion of consciousness. But above all, he had to reveal the nature of the will of God. And this we will look in detail in future webinars, so we won't go into that right now. So what does the term reappear mean? Does that mean that he never left us? True, he has never left us, but he is in a physical body, securely concealed, though not hidden. Now, was he in a physical, actual dense physical body? Or does decay mean his etheric body? We don't know. But we do know that from his quiet mountain retreat, he is watching and guiding the fate of humanity. He's guiding his army, he's training his disciples, initiates, and the new group of world servers. But where is he exactly? He is in his present retreat in Central Asia. And DK tells us that there isn't a day that he doesn't pour out his blessing on the earth, standing under the great pine tree in his yard at sunset, pouring his blessings over all those who sincerely love humanity. In which guise will he come? Well, that too we don't know. We don't know the exact moment, how he'll be coming, but DK gives us a few hints. He tells us that it won't involve the birth of some nice child in some nice home on earth. No. He may come as a politician, as an economist, as a scientist, as an artist, as a leader of his people, but not necessarily through the medium of churches or world religions. Well, in the Middle Ages, it was the churches and the schools of philosophy that provided the major avenues for his subjective activity. But it won't be so when he's actually here. So he's giving a warning to the churches and all these organized religions. Well, you better remember that. Because now there's going to be a shift in his emphasis. First, into the field of worldwide education, and secondly, in the world of government, in its three aspects of statesmanships, legislation, and politics. No. Whatever channel that he will use other possible channels where the consciousness of men may be enlarged and the right orientation will be brought about. So whether it's science or sport or the whole technology, law, music, whatever field, he will use all these fields to his advantage. Next point, what nationality? No one knows. He could come as an Englishman, a Russian, a Negro, a Latin, a Turk, a Hindu. Who knows? Will he belong to any religion? He could be a Hindu or a Christian or a Buddhist or no faith at all. But DK tells us he won't come as a restorer of the ancient religions, not even Christianity. That one of his senior masters will do that. Probably Master Jesus will restore Christianity because that's his responsibility. But he will come to restore men's faith in the Father's love, in the fact of the livingness of the Christ, and in the close, subjective, unbreakable relationship of men everywhere. Christ is the world teacher. He belongs to humanity and to the world of men, not to churches and religious faiths throughout the world. And how is the Christ's second coming predicted in the Bible? Okay, he will be seated at the right hand of God and followed by his angels and the church invisible. He will be descending upon the clouds of heaven to the sound of a trumpet, and he will make an appearance in Jerusalem. Okay. Yes, the symbolic prophecies will be true, but it needs some reinterpretation. It won't be exactly as the scriptures say. Yes, he will come in the clouds of the air. In Jerusalem. Is that a location? Yes, there is the town, Jerusalem, but Jerusalem is not a town in Christ, from Christ's point of view. It is a symbol of peace. So he will come, but Jerusalem is a symbolic term for peace. But we do know he will not take a Jewish body, for the Jews have forfeited that privilege. And as I said earlier on, the Messiah that the Jews have been waiting for will be one of Christ's senior disciples, but it won't be as it was originally intended, the Christ himself. The scriptures tell us that every eye shall see him. It might mean that by the time he comes, television would have been perfected, and therefore he'll be seen from the most distant spot on earth. And we know today, with the internet and the satellites, every eye will definitely shall see him, and instantaneously too. Riding on the clouds of heaven, yes, he'll probably come on the clouds of heaven. But look at DK's practicality or pragmatism. He says, but why use such a means when a plane will equally well fulfill the purpose and carry the prophecy to completion? You've got a great sense of humor, DK. But I think the point that he's trying to make is that there is a good deal of stupidity that will have to be eliminated before he can come. And what is the Church of Christ? It is an aggregation of all those who love their fellow men, because to love one's fellow man is a divine faculty which makes us full members of Christ's community. His invisible church is the spiritual hierarchy composed of disciples of all faith and of all degrees. He doesn't care what faith it is, so long as the objective is the love of God and loving one another. And he did say that 2,000 years ago. Love one another as I have loved you. That was the biggest injunction, the biggest law that he's given us. And today is no different. So the Christ has got no religious barriers in his consciousness. Will he come alone? DK tells us that he will gather around him in the flesh his chosen associates and advisors. They won't be the ones who gathered around him in those simpler days, but those members of our human family who today recognize him and are preparing to work with him as far as they can. And when he comes, he will bring with him some of the great angels as well as some of the masters. Because the call has gone out for the angels to approach humanity and with their superior knowledge unite their forces with the disciples of Christ to help the race. So which angels are we talking about here? We know definitely the violet angels, that he will bring them, those violet angels that belong to the first, second, third, and fourth etheric subplanes. We know also that he will bring the green devas of the vegetable kingdoms, because they were together with the violet devas under Christ. They are a band of servers, pledged to the service of the Christ, and their work will be to contact men and to teach them along certain lines. And as far as healing is concerned, the green devas will be helping healers everywhere with probably herbalism or infusions of herbs. And what will these angels teach? They will teach us to see etherically. They will teach the effect of color in the healing of disease and the efficiency of violet light in lessening the human diseases and in curing those diseases that originate in the etheric body. They will teach humans about superhuman physics so as to transmute weight and achieve more rapid, smooth, noiseless motion. We know that already some of the trains are travel on a bed of magnetic rails, and they are motionless, and they travel at a tremendous speed of nearly 400 kilometers an hour. So that has already happened. What will they do too? They will help us to contact the higher kingdoms, the superconscious kingdoms. They will help us to control the etheric levels so as to eliminate fatigue and transcend time. And hopefully we'll be able to travel from one end to the earth to the other without jet lag, to nourish the body rightly and extract nourishment from the ethers. Now that's an interesting thought, because is that how Christ managed then to keep his body alive for 2,000 years? Possible? How to expand their consciousness to include the super-physical. What by that he means the etheric levels, to be able to see the 4 etheric levels, and to develop intuition and to understand the power of sound and color, so that the work of the Christ and the great ones can be contacted and understood. It is also possible that with him, the Master Moria meaning, the great Deva of the spiritual plane, the Lord Agni, and the Lord Agni works with Master Moria. And as we know, Master Moria is one of the principal force behind the reappearance. Of course, the second is the main, but is the main ashram, but Master Moria will definitely be supporting and being involved. And here, the Lord Agni, Dike tells us, seeks to touch with a hidden spiritual fire the head centers of all intuitive statesmen. And these groups of angels are the gold, the flame-colored, and the white and the gold, who will be working on mental levels together with those lesser angels or devas who vitalize the thought forms on the mental plane and who keep alive the thoughts of the guides of the race, which is hierarchy, for the benefit of humanity. Before we close, and where we will join with DK and hierarchy and sound the great invocation together. We've got a few more minutes, so maybe you might like to share some of your insights. So if any of you would like to share or make a comment, go ahead. And you know how you can put your hand up, don't you?
I'm looking for hands.
And while you're looking for hands, Joe, do you mind telling the audience about the handout?
Oh, right. I uploaded the slides into a PDF handout, and it should be available to you in the handouts box. It's called ROC MF Webinar 1. And if you can't download that, what we're going to do, I am going to attach the recording to your registration. And I'm also going to create a list of everyone on this webinar and send you the audio and video recordings and the slides from my Transfer Big files. So let's see what Yvonne, I'm going to unmute you, Yvonne, and let's see how your audio is.
Nicole, I'm a little confused. Now, Christ has been with us in his etheric body, in the planetary etheric body, I guess, in Shambhala or wherever. But when he comes back, so he's been in the body that he was in, his etheric body. When he comes back, he's going to take another body, a physical presence. What happens to his etheric body that he's been using if he takes another physical body that just has a new physical body? I don't understand how that's going to work.
Well, I don't either. Because we're not sure whether he is, because DK tells us that he is in physical body. Now, very often DK mentions the etheric body as a physical body as well. So that's why we don't know. Is Christ in a dense physical body, or is Christ in his etheric body? We don't know. But as we know, an etheric body is only a combination of the chakras, yes? So it will just, through his will, he will just materialize. That's my understanding, but we don't know whether he will take another physical body. I've got no idea.
Okay,
All we know is that he's going to be in a physical body, whether it's etheric or whether it's dense physical. I don't know, because as you said here, as we said here, and I'll go back to this slide where he said that he is in a secure. See, he said, let's reread that sentence again. He has never left us, but in physical body and securely concealed. What does that mean? though not hidden, securely concealed. I don't know. Now, it could be he's away in his mountain retreat, which means that he doesn't see anybody. So that's why okay, it's not hidden, but he's not seen by anybody else. Or does he really mean that he is in his etheric body? It's not hidden, but it's concealed because people can't see etherically. I don't know. So we can take it whichever. But the point is, he's never left us. He is actually on Earth, whether he's in his etheric body or in his physical body, a dense physical body, I mean, he hasn't left us.
Thank you very much. Also, the angels that the devas that Master Mori is bringing on the mental plane, at those powers that they're going to bestow on humanity or help with the healing in that, they sound absolutely fabulous, don't they?
Yes. Oh, great. Yes.
Thank you.
So
You're
Nicole,
welcome.
Michael's hand is up. I'll unmute Michael's.
Yes.
Just a second, Michael. We're almost there. Hi, Michael.
Okay. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Michael.
Thank you for bringing this all together. It's a great service that you're doing here. I wanted to bring forth New World Religion. And as I think about it, there's at least two ways that can be interpreted. First, it's a new religion for the world, superseding all the other religions and they go away or something. Another way to look at it is it's a combined religion for the new world, the world that is coming, the Aquarian Age, which I'm seeing a little bit of difference between the two. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the present religions go away, but people begin to see the commonalities within all these world religions.
Quite right. And if you don't mind, Michael, we will be spending another webinar on this whole topic. So if you wouldn't mind, we will tackle that whole question when we come to this particular topic, because it's very important, because we are involved. What we are doing at the moment is part of this new world religion that he is talking about. So we'll discuss it in length then. But very briefly, I think that you are on the right track as well. He will be giving us new ways of looking at life, which will be part of that new religion, but he will also be restoring, vivifying the old ones, making them change their perspective. So he won't do away with them either.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
We have another hand up. I'm going to mute Michael, and Sheldon, I'm going to unmute you. Let's see how your audio is working. Hi, Sheldon.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Hi, Sheldon. Yes, we can.
Hey. Well, I just want to echo some of the earlier comments. Michael's, thank you very much also for this wonderful presentation. It's beautifully comprehensive and illustrated. It's marvelous to kind of follow.
Thank you.
Follow the pictures as well. And I just one comment on Michael's thing, and I want to make one other one too. You know, when DK talks about the hoped for use of the three major festivals on a worldwide basis, as different groups, different parts of the world coming from various traditions get doing this, it seems to me we're going to have exactly the kind of situation where we can see some of the common threads that come through. as we get used to the images that are playing through and the kind of rising in consciousness of a number of people in those religions. So I think we're going to be well suited as that takes place. The other thing that raised in my mind was the obvious about the preceding his reappearance is the externalization of the hierarchy and all the work that, we're moving up to 2025 right now in our own way, trying to work our way through some of the very hopeful, destructive messes that are being created around the world today. But as those ashrams begin to externalize, it would seem to me that there's going to be a lot of people highly developed who could be easily overshadowed for a period of their lives as statesmen or in various professions. So they could be vehicles also for the Christ to express through various channels. So I hadn't thought about it very much, but I just think that I hadn't thought that far ahead. But that's a thought that came to my mind. How that could take place. Thank you so much for this. It's wonderful.
Very valid, Sheldon. Very valid insight there, because I know that we are the forerunners. We are being overshadowed by Christ. So in a way, we are an externalization of his of the great ashram of Sanat Kumara as well. You know. So we are part of this externalization. I know that we are crying in the desert, and I know exactly what you mean, that some of these disciples are being totally, what is the expression that you used?
Overshadowed?
You used a very good, you used another word. Yes, well, not only they are overshadowed, but at the moment there is so much lawlessness that our voices or the voices of these disciples aren't being heard. And it's only being heard by those who are responsive to that kind of energy, because the media is making so much noise about everything else to generate fear and spike the violence. So well, I think we've got great times ahead of us. This is reading the Reappearance of the Christ, for me personally, in spite of all the violence surrounding us, knowing that the government of the earth is in the hands of hierarchy, makes me feel good. We know that we have a little role to play. Sometimes we are not sure what that role is, but like I said here, I'll look for this. All we have to do, there we go. If we can just stand, just like Sanat Kumara just stands implacable, and no matter what life throws at us, no matter what we're surrounded with, if we can stand like firm, erect, implacable, like the lighthouse, I think we would have helped the Christ in his great endeavor.
Indeed. I just add that this when you read about the lawlessness in the world periodically descending, it would appear that way in many respects. And is that not a call for this externalization and reappearance process? So for those of us who are somewhat trying to work with it, for us to put ourselves in this place, as you're pointing out here, implacable, but also looking for ways in which some of the early conditions, can be established, so that at least some of these ashrams can be present, some of these cities, so that the wave can begin to come as that rise begins to take hold.
Yeah, you're quite right. We need to be focal points, shouldn't we?
Yes.
Focal points for hierarchy, like little lights in the dark.
At least.
Yes. Thank you, Sheldon.
And what a beautiful image for us to hold here at the time of cancer. I build a lighted house and therein dwell.
Oh, hey, yes, yes, quite right.
So I thought maybe, Nicole, what we should do before you take us to the closing, I'd like to just read through the names of those who are with us today. We have Alicia, and Veronica, Anne Marie, Antoinette, Barbara, Catherine, Dox, Diana, Helena, who does have her hand up, and Helena, I'll get to you in just a minute. John, Yoka, Josefa, Julie, Catherine, Lona, Lynn, Michael, Michael M., and we have Michael S., Natalie, Mienka, Sheldon, Tia, Yvonne, and Sinead. So I just want to thank you all for joining us, and I'll go back and unmute Helena, and let's take this as a last kind of discussion, and then Nicole will close. Hi, Helena.
Ah, yes, here. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Nicole, for this presentation. Presencing the Christ energy along this line of powerful expectation is so needed and necessary in whatever venues and occasions we can find. So for you to put something like this together is very, very good. We too have been greatly focused on the Christ and the reappearance of the Christ and the externalization of the hierarchy for a number of years. And, in addition to what is expected with the Christ announcement in June of 1945, he also said simultaneously that there is a great responsibility for humanity before he can reappear, because if he would reappear in the midst of certain factors not happening, it would be of no use for him to come. And a couple of those, I think I can remember, there's a minimum of 4, and then elsewhere I read 7. But one of them is that the institutions of humanity have to clean house. Yes. And these institutions are business institutions, all the major expressions, but the business is a big one. And the churches have to clean house. Yes. That is a big, big one. And we're seeing that happening, especially with the Catholic Christian churches, with everything that's happening with the priests and with the current Pope exiting. I mean, I think he's one of the most brilliant house cleaners we've seen on a stage. And there also has to be the principle of sharing in a solid measure where humanity is not selfishly living. The nations are not just caring about their own people, but are really trying to solve the problems of humanity and sharing money and sharing resources and sharing food and housing and all of these basics to human living. And then the really important one is that there has to be a certain measure of peace in the world. And that I think is really one of the tough ones because of all the wars on a planet. And yet there was a man who wrote a book and did a study that there is, it's hard to believe, but he says that there is more peace today than there has ever been. So I find those and he actually cites statistics and so it's very interesting. But these are, I think, the 3 major factors that have to be put into place. I just wanted to share. True. Yeah.
Thank you, Helena, and you're quite right, because he did say that the Christ will not come until certain factors are in place. Until the forerunners, we have done our job then he can't reappear. So that's why it's absolutely important. You're so right. Yes, he is going to be stimulated by the invocation of humanity as a whole, but unless the soil has been tilled to a certain extent, then he will not be able to reappear. But you're quite right. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was a very important point. Okay. Then next time we will talk about the Gethsemane experience, because for us to really understand the reappearance, or why Christ will reappear, it's necessary for us to understand what happened 2,000 years ago in that humble garden of Gethsemane, because that's what started it all off. So we will be looking at this in detail next time. So then let's picture our group surrounding Master DK and members of hierarchy, facing 3 windows, north, east, and west, as symbols of the 3 qualities of the soul: will, love, and intelligence. And let us say the great invocation together, not only as a group, but in unison with hierarchy, with intensity of feeling and meaning every word that we say, and sounding a blue Om after each stanza. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And now raise your clasped hands above the head and say, and so let it be, and help us do our part. Then bring them down to the forehead and let them rest on your heart. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And have a good month. And may you build a lighted house during the next month coming. And a lighted house so that Christ can come and rest in this beautiful house of light. Thank you. And hopefully we will see you next month. Bye. And we will thank Jo for her assistance behind the scenes. Thank you, Jo.